Are we ready to start? So good evening and welcome. Thank you for attending the regular council meeting of Monday, August 1st, 2022. With regards to the progress report for this month and last, in terms of communications, a public mailout went out July 14th to inform residents that the amended planning program to include objectives and strategies for protection of the environment has received approval from the MRC and is in effect as of April 14th, 2022. With regards to public presentations, we are preparing a public presentation or sectoral presentation to the Birch Hill Brisbane area residents, the Whitlock Golf Country Club, and Whitlock West area residents. This will be to share the recommendations in the Septic Installation Management Plan, or the Plan de Gestion des Installations Septiques, prepared by Groupe Hémisphère last September, and to present the town's proposal for this area's connection to the main sewer network. The date of the public presentation is to be announced. With regards to current projects, you will find that a new tab has been created on the town's website for current projects. For public works, in terms of road work, Main East is being planned for this year, where we were asked if it was possible to add a segment from Quarry Point to St. Thomas School. This unfortunately is not part of the present contract, as the work would require to go up to the train crossing and need authorization from EXO, which would further delay the project. And also the main Vivry culvert is on the list of culverts that require inspection and possible updating before redoing the road work there. With regards to McNaughton Bridge, I invite you to take a look at the information and the questions and answers section provided on the town's website. The bridge was lifted off its footings during a high water event this spring. This bridge and the bridge crossing the Vivry below Royal View in the Sandy Beach Conservation Area were inspected in May of 2022 by a licensed professional, Shelex, and unfortunately the footings must be rebuilt to present technical standards with approval from the Environment Ministry and the MRC. So the bridge at McNaughton will be closed and removed until it is replaced with a new structure that has been designed and certified by a licensed professional, and where the installation has been permitted by the MRC and the Ministry of Environment. Unfortunately, this work will take between 1 and 2 years, depending on the option that we opt for. The shorter version falls within a 10-meter buffer line that requires ministerial approval, whereas a much longer bridge could be done sooner, but would be much bigger and more costly. We were presented with a temporary solution, which would be scaffolding, bridging, or basically bridging the gap between the two sides. It was decided that the monthly cost or the recurring cost of this monthly expense would be not that efficient, and that it would be better to go with a permanent replacement, not with some effort on the part of some councillors to get this done. So the good news is that public engineers who reviewed the application for authorization are no longer on strike, and we expect that there will be a backlog and slow return to regular delays. With regards to Pine Lake, the ad hoc working committee has met a couple of times in July as well, where we've added the services of an external expert. This is Pierre Labbé. You'll find a resolution later on in the meeting. He is to help the group align the committee's scope of definition for this bridge, for the dam, and to provide additional information as needed. The issues that were discussed that will have an impact on the scope definition are erosion, could or should nature take over, and what would happen to invasive species, the aesthetics and enhancing the public amenity, cost of the project, and maintenance. The urgency of the project is certain. There is a desire from the public to manage costs, and that there are savings, and if there are savings to be made, that these should be reallocated to more essential road repair. With regards to a stopgap measure that will need to be applied in weeks ahead to palliate the erosion that is presently taking place on the south side of the dam, we expect that larger crushed stone will be brought in to stabilize and reinforce the embankment, as was done a few years ago on the north side of the dam. So the present step continues to be to redefine the design orientations, And we are presently approximately 70% complete in this process. At the last ad hoc meeting, it was recommended by the group that this process be completed with the input of others to generate a strongly founded decisional consensus. We hope to get this done in August. With regards to our commitment to St. Lazare, I have sent a letter by email to St. Lazare proposing an extension of 24 months be requested to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans with support from Hudson. No answer has been received to this point. With regards to urban planning, a demolition request was received for 96 Selkirk. The demolition committee met on May 31st, and there have been no contestations of this decision, and the project will move forward. The deadline for sending in the written comments was May 30th. There were 5 that were received before the committee met. Those were taken into account during the committee's meeting. And after that, no further comments or rebuttals were received. With regards to TPAC, a call for candidates was posted on the town's website a couple of weeks ago. Also, recommendations from past and present TPAC members were solicited. This evening, at item 3.7, a resolution will be presented for adoption to fill the 2 empty seats resulting from this process. Please note that the submittal date for applications, this for the month of September, has been moved up by 1 week. So the meeting will be held on September 7th instead of September 13th. The revised calendar for TPAC meetings is on the town's website. With regards to progress on the RCI number 1, which is the one on environmental protections, you will see at item 3.9 that a resolution will be presented to council for adoption for the hiring of an expert on characterizing remarkable trees in our area. Her name is Suzanne Hardy. Suzanne came to Hudson in early June of this year and gave a small seminar to a handful of people as she was looking to assess our level of interest and also gather material for her latest book on remarkable trees in Quebec. Suzanne and her colleague will be circulating through Hudson in the next month. They will have with them a letter from the town confirming they are mandated by the town for the survey of remarkable trees that she has started in 1998. Suzanne Hardy was hired in 2005 by Hydro-Québec to produce an inventory and map remarkable trees along distribution lines. These trees are meant to receive VIP treatment by Hydro-Québec when trimming, pruning, or work is being carried out along these electrical lines. Suzanne uses criteria comparable to those developed by American Forests or the American Forestry Association, a non-for-profit association founded by forestry professionals in 1875 that started a registry of remarkable trees in 1940 based on size. The criteria and the methodology developed by Suzanne extends to rarity, vulnerability, vestige of an old ecosystem, noble hardwood, rarity, out of its hardness zone, dwarfed by its living conditions, landscape and horticultural heritage, picturesque, local color, historical heritage, part of a historical district. The notion of value of an ensemble to protect begins to emerge and becomes important. With regards to preparing for the second RCI, the one that will cover heritage and look and feel, I have met with the cultural ministry with regards, actually, Philip and I met with regards to the Ottawa Glass Works. My first meeting with them was on July 7th, just to cover some overall items with regards to the CMM's Commission on Cultural and Heritage, to which I've been appointed. And on July 14th, Philip and I met with them also to discuss the potential or la mise en valeur of such a site and what would be the steps and support that we could be expecting from the Ministry of Environment. So it is clear that the provincial funding, the next round of provincial funding opens in the spring of 2023, and to serve as a foundation for any requests that we would make for a cultural agreement between the ministry and the town, it would be helpful to have a cultural policy ready by this point. So another motivation to get our cultural policy done. With regards to progress on past resolution, in June, there was a public presentation with regards to the bylaw 753 2022 to support the Sewer Connection Assistance Program. At the time, only 10 owners had signed up. This month or this past month, another 18 owners signed up, bringing the number to 28, which represents 24% of those who are eligible. So at this point, this represents a decent loan bylaw of approximately 28,000 that is applicable to those property owners only, and the town is ready to proceed with this loan bylaw. With regards to upcoming activities in August, so presently the Hudson Music Festival opened its 16th edition on Friday, July 29th. This year it is a 6-day event that will run until the evening of Wednesday, August 3rd. The main stage this weekend was located at Selkirk in Maine. This evening, there is an event being held at the St. Thomas Church. Tomorrow it is the Cultural Hub in Como. And Wednesday, I forget, at the community center, so it is here. Their program is online, and I highly recommend that you take a look. It's been very, very interesting up until now. At the end of July, the Hudson Village Theatre ran their show, Hey Viola, which lasted 4 days, which is the soundtrack of the life of Viola Desmond. Their next production, a comedy titled Feather and Gardens, co-created by Jimmy Blais and Dean Patrick Fleming, will run from this Thursday, August 4th to August 20th. Also, Illume Festival, in continuation of the pre-pandemic Park Rising annual event that was held in 2018 and 2019, a yoga and wellness festival will be held this weekend, Saturday, August 6th and Sunday, August 7th. This event will encompass yoga, meditating, food tasting, learning, and live music. Also on August 13th, the Hudson Auto Show, after a 2-year hiatus, will hold their event at the corner, basically along the street, and also occupy the parking at Char's commercial complex. Several automobile clubs have confirmed attendance, such as MG, Triumph, and Ferrari clubs. Once again, we are pleased to welcome they are pleased to welcome the Consul General of Italy, Mrs. Silvia Constantini, who will be visiting in an unofficial capacity. Her first visit to Hudson was for the 2019 Auto Show. Judges this year will include Peter Schiffke and David Addis from the Auberge Willow. Also, Hudson Day will take place on Saturday, August 27th, and Greenwood continues their program with Music in the Garden on Sunday, August, I haven't written down the date, but I think it's 7th, and Sunday, August 21st. Also, the Players Club will be holding a theater piece on the lawn at Greenwood from Friday, August 26th to August 28th. I forget the name of that event, but you will find it online as well. In September, Porch Fest 2022 will take place on Saturday, September 10th. This is their 5th edition. A full list of summer events is available on the town's website. Now, with regards to town news, this is a reminder that when Town Hall is closed and all non-life-threatening emergencies, please call the Community Patrol at 514-219-5383. With regards to ad hoc meetings with the mayor, on July, as I'd mentioned, I held 2 meetings, so one for Pine Lake Ad Hoc Committee with local experts. The 3rd meeting was held on Monday, July 11th, and the 4th meeting on Wednesday, July 20th. Also, with regards to Heritage Look and Feel, these meetings continue. They're most often the Saturday following the council meeting. I was thinking that in August, so this month, rather than being Saturday because of the Illume Festival, that this month it would be held on Friday, August 5th. With regards to this evening's agenda, there will be one recusal from the item on Willowbrook, which is item 3.2. So Darren Legault will recuse himself. And with regards to the evolving format of council meetings, there will be no presentations by local organizations or groups supported by the town this evening. The question periods as per last meeting, while looking to bring better structure to the question period, I remind you that a person is asked to keep to 1 question per question period with 1 follow-up. Questions can pertain to items on the agenda or not at either question period. Also, last meeting it was suggested by someone calling in that my monthly opening statements should be transcribed and made available to the public. So this in July, a synopsis was included in the July meeting minutes that will be adopted this evening and soon available online. So now moving on to the content of tonight's. Yes.
Point of clarification,
Yes.
when you were discussing the bylaw, loan bylaw for the hookup to the sewage system, did you say $28,000 or
Well, it's 10,000 per, correct? Up to.
280,000?
So thank you.
I think you had mentioned 28 and just
I appreciate the correction.
you said a lot, so there's a chance.
Yes, it's easier to drop a zero. Thank you. So this is it. So we are moving on to, what is it? The adoption. Yes, 1.1 adoption of the agenda. So I will need, will there be any modifications proposed? No. Yes, no. Mover and a seconder. So Reed Thompson moves, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to the approval of this agenda? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Ah, en français. Pardon, je m'excuse.
Que l'ordre du jour de la séance du conseil soit adopté tel que soumis.
Merci. So moving on to the confirmation of minutes at item 2.1, confirmation of July 4th, regular meeting minutes. Whereas council has reviewed the minutes of the July 4th regular meeting, I will need a mover and a seconder. So to my right, Peter Mate is moving, seconded by Marc Gray, et en français.
Adoption du procès verbal de la séance du 4 juillet, tel que soumis.
Merci. So are there any objections to the adoption of this, of the meeting minutes, or are there any corrections? No? I see none. It is carried unanimously. First question period. Are there any questions? Please come up. Are there any questions online? No? How many people are online? 8 people are online. Great.
Good evening, everybody. Jim Duff, 127 Charleswood. I wonder where we are in relation to our welcome tax, because we budgeted $1.25 million this year. And there have been anecdotal reports in other municipalities that they're running way short on that. I wanted to know where we were sitting at in comparison to last year. And the second question is, what about tax arrears? Where are we with tax arrears? Because this is the time of year usually where we're talking about hosting the deadbeats.
I think we did that last month, but I'll answer the first one. Then what did you want to add to where we're at with the welcome tax, since you and I had looked at it?
It's kind of hard to figure out because the estimate and the actual for the first few months were on target.
We're well on target. Do you want to give precisions, Philip?
As of this meeting, we should probably be slightly surpassed, in fact, by our estimates.
For welcome tax. And then with regards to tax arrears, I believe that the list was submitted last council meeting. And do you remember the number? I want to say 700, but that sounds high.
Actually, that might be correct.
Okay.
But
I can send you the information tomorrow if you'd like.
we're lower than we were in the last few years.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions online? No, please.
Yes, I brought it up with Chloe over the weekend that I live on Wharf Road, and my 4 other neighbors mentioned that we're smelling the smell of methane gas coming from the watering plant. And I'm just wondering, because it's not been smelling like it has since I've lived there. And my immediate neighbors now are mentioning the same thing. And I came to speak on their behalf as well, saying, is there an air purification for this plant, and has it been upgraded? And what are the standards? Because it smells putrid. And I was just wondering if I could get some insight on how that could be remedied.
Certainly the comments have been forwarded to our town director. Do you have any update on that? I know that today there was still some evaluation being done on this, right?
Yeah, so there's several sources. One is the pumping station. We'll see what we can do about improving that, but that's been a constant for many months. There seems to be a problem with the ventilation system in the building, and in fact, the company that's in charge of ventilation is going to be coming tomorrow to take a look at the plant. We have a couple of suggestions, possibly putting scrubbers on the outtake of the ventilation. But we'll wait for the company to come in tomorrow to give us our evaluation.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes.
Louis Craig, 127 Charleswood. A few months back, I asked you about the vulnerability report and how it's not listed on the town website, how we can't see it there. And it's still not there. The answer that I had gotten from Melissa, our clerk, was that some of the information had to be redacted. Now, the vulnerability report relates to things that would be subject to an issue, a problem. How is Hudson vulnerable? The only thing that I could think of that would need to be redacted, I don't think it needs to because it's sent to the province, is the amount of pesticides that are being put out by the golf courses and what these pesticides would be. We don't test for a lot of these things, but we should at least know what we're vulnerable to at this point. So I don't think the rights of a perfect lawn or a perfect green, putting green should, surpass the rights of human beings.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with which items need to be redacted. Philip, do you have any additional information to bring to this?
Not at the moment. I'll look into it, but certainly we have a bylaw, pesticide bylaw, and herbicide bylaw, where the golf courses are expected to give us some reports. I'll have to see where we're at on whether those reports have been submitted. Certainly anything that's public at a provincial website would be needlessly redacted on our part.
There's something that Melissa had stated, that something needed to be
couldn't-
redacted for privacy reasons.
I
And the
couldn't
only thing
speak.
that would be the golf courses and the pesticides they're using.
I would suggest you make the access to information request and see what the
Okay,
redactions
so
are.
Phil, when are we going to have it on the website? Chloe, when can we get it? San
As
Luis
soon
makes
as
theirs
soon as it
public,
is ready.
even though, it does state different things like benzene in their water in Saddlebrook. Residents need to know these things. If we are vulnerable to benzene, if we're vulnerable to
Mhm.
other pesticides, we should know this.
Agreed. No, I'll
okay.
look into it this month.
Yeah, I'd like
Alright.
to see it as soon as possible.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Louise. Are there other questions? No. All right, moving on then with part 3 on urban planning and environment. Mark, did you want to give an update with regards to the work on the CWG and the Environment Committee?
The Conservation Working Group, the CWG, we just handed in sort of the first half of our recommendations for bylaw changes in that genre to Chloe, and she had a good look over them the other day and sort of reported back. So we have a little chatting to do in that regard, and then hopefully in the next few weeks we'll get the kind of the other half. There's a bunch of big ticket items, site characterization, what protections around wetlands will be like, water protection, stuff like that, forest protection. Anyways, so it's a lot of work in the summer. It's tough. It's a little bit slower than I'd hoped, but I myself am busy. So we're certainly doing our best to get it ready. So Perry Plus as well can look over our recommendations, and council can look over our recommendations. So that's where we are with the CWG, and the Environment Committee is ready to go. We've narrowing down the dates for our first meeting later in the month, which is great. So that'll be our first sort of meet and greet, and then we can get to work on some of the hot topics that council has approved, one of which is pesticides. So I'm quite excited to get going with that group and all the other topics like garbage, recycling, composting. I mean, there's a great list: greenhouse gas reduction, all those great
You're going to be
topics.
busy. Yes. So thank you again to the CWG and all the hard work that you guys have put in. It's high quality and certainly a lot of matter to get through, but I really appreciate their work. So please pass along my thanks.
Absolutely.
All right, with regards to urban planning and TPAC, I will let you run then with item 3.1, 76A Oakland SPAPE replacement plan.
So 76A Oakland has come back with a different position for this replacement of this home. TPAC reviewed it and was unanimous in the recommendation to refuse the permit request, where the objective to harmonize the architectural characteristics of new buildings with those of neighboring buildings is not respected is the primary objective.
En français? Ouais.
Les propriétaires du 76A Oakland désirent démolir la maison existante afin de construire une nouvelle maison, que la demande est assujettie à l'approbation du comité de démolition, que la démolition prévoit un programme préliminaire de réutilisation du sol qui doit être approuvé par le comité de démolition, qu'une demande d'approbation a été reçue, que le comité consultatif d'urbanisme recommande unanimement de refuser la demande, considérant que le critère visant à respecter les caractéristiques propres à l'architecture du bâtiment n'est pas rempli.
Merci beaucoup. So this resolution, as you have just heard, is based on TPAC's recommendation of refusal. So I will need a mover and a seconder for this. Reed Thompson moves, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.2, lot 6320522, Willowbrook SPAPE, new single-family construction. Please note that Darren Legault has pulled his chair back from the table and recuses himself.
So item 3.2 is basically it's a new single family construction that is not part of the pre-approved plans. So it came to TPAC on July 19th. TPAC was unanimous in the recommendation to refuse the permit request, where the objective to preserve or to make sure the architectural characteristics of various buildings in a given project are coherent in order to create a consistency, shape of roof, exterior cladding, window, door treatments, material color, ornamentation is not fulfilled. And also the objective to ensure the project's eventual integration with the built environment is not respected with regards to things like volume, measurements, building height, pitch, shape of roof, things like that.
Point of order. I'd like to understand why Councillor Legault has accused himself.
I have a family member who still lives in the house who works for Habitation Robert. So I've recused myself from all of the Habitation Robert projects to date.
Thank you. Is that clear, Doug? Yes. Donc, en français, la résolution, s'il vous plaît.
Considérant qu'une demande de permis a été reçue pour une nouvelle construction unifamiliale, que le comité consultatif d'urbanisme a traité ce dossier, considérant la recommandation unanime de refuser la demande, considérant que le critère visant à s'assurer que les caractéristiques architecturales des différents bâtiments sont cohérents n'est pas rempli et que le critère visant à réinterpréter de façon contemporaine le style architectural des bâtiments n'est pas rempli.
Merci beaucoup. So as you've heard, this resolution is to refuse the SPAPE of the permit request on this lot. I will need a mover and a seconder for this project. Mover, Peter Mate, seconded by Benoit Blais. Thank you. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. Doug Smith. So it is adopted by majority. All right. Doug, did you want to speak to?
No.
No.
No, I don't know. Not the record. No, I do not wish.
I beg your pardon, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. No, I do not wish to speak on
Okay.
my.
Okay. Item 3.3, 453 Ridge, Spape Edition.
So 453 Ridge is an addition to a single-family home. TPAC reviewed it. This is the second time it's come before TPAC and was unanimous in the recommendation to approve the permit request.
En français.
Qu'une demande de permis a été reçue pour l'agrandissement du 453 Ridge, que le comité consultatif d'urbanisme recommande unanimement d'approuver la demande.
Merci. So in this case, the resolution is to approve the SPAPE of the permit request based on the unanimous recommendation of TPAC. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Reed Thompson moves, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. I see no hands raised. What is the problem?
Turn back to the-
You call back there.
Did I? No, I
you move
haven't.
the chair back.
Sorry.
I'm sure the recording.
Shall I
secretary
start the
caught that.
resolution again? Yes. Thank you very much. You need to make it louder next time. You scratch it back. Thank you. So, it is carried unanimously. There's some things I do better than others. This is not it. Item 3.4, 47 aired, modification to the approved space.
So 47 aired is basically it's a four-season porch. TPAC reviewed the file and was unanimous in their recommendation to approve the permit request.
Merci, en français.
Considérant qu'une demande pour un agrandissement au 47 Aird a été approuvée par le conseil, que les demandeurs ont apporté des modifications au PIA approuvé nécessitant une nouvelle approbation, le comité consultatif recommande unanimement d'approuver la demande.
So this resolution is for the approval of this SPAPE request based on a unanimous approval or recommendation of TPAC. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Peter Mate moves and seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. This is carried unanimously. Item 3.5, 77 Pine for the SPAPE major renovation.
So 77 Pine is the replacement of the siding on the house, a single-family home. TPAC reviewed the file on July 19th, and they were unanimous in their recommendation to refuse the permit request. Where the objective to preserve, in the case of existing buildings, their architectural character is not respected. The roof shape, exterior cladding material specifically. The objective to preserve, in the case of existing buildings, the architectural character and the use of materials of equal or greater quality when material is replaced is not fulfilled.
En français.
Qu'une demande a été reçue pour des travaux de rénovation majeure au 77 Pine, que le comité consultatif d'urbanisme recommande unanimement de refuser la demande, considérant que le critère d'évaluation visant à respecter les caractéristiques propres à l'architecture du bâtiment, n'est pas rempli, et que le critère d'évaluation visant à imposer l'utilisation de matériaux de qualité égale ou supérieure lors du remplacement n'est pas rempli.
Merci. So this resolution is to refuse the SPAPE of the permit request at 77 Pine. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Reed Thompson moves, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.6, 426 Main, SPAPE sign on a building.
So 426 Main is the sign for the Immobilier. TPAC reviewed the request and was unanimous in the recommendation to refuse the authorization, where the objective to properly locate signage, to prioritize signage that respects the architectural characteristics of the building and installation locations is not fulfilled.
En français.
Qu'une demande de certificat d'autorisation a été reçue pour l'installation d'une enseigne pour le 426 Main, que le comité consultatif d'urbanisme recommande unanimement de refuser la demande de certificat d'autorisation, considérant que l'objectif que l'enseigne doit s'intégrer harmonieusement au bâtiment et être localisée de manière appropriée n'est pas respecté.
Merci. So this resolution is to refuse the SPAPE of the certificate of authorization request at 426 Main with regards to the sign on a building. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Mark Gray and seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. No, that was it. Did you want to speak to 3.7?
3.7.
Appointment of Town Planning Advisory Committee.
So there were one resignation at TPAC from a citizen member who can no longer commit the time. So that left us with 2 vacant seats. The notice was published on the town website, and 2 candidates were chosen, which is Matt Stenberg and Elizabeth Corker. Reviewing their experience and interest in joining TPAC, it's the 2 applicants that discussed.
Thank you. En français.
Considérant que le comité consultatif d'urbanisme doit être composé de 2 membres du conseil et de 7 résidents de la ville, que le mandat est fixé à 2 ans et est renouvelable, qu'un membre citoyen ne peut plus siéger à titre de membre citoyen et qu'il y avait un siège vacant, considérant que le service de l'urbanisme a publié un appel de candidature sur le site Internet, la résolution vise à nommer Matthew Steinberg et Elizabeth Corker à titre de membre citoyen pour un terme de 2 ans.
Merci. So I will need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. So Reed Thompson moves, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Doug Smith. This motion is carried by majority. Did you want to speak to this? No?
Yes.
Please.
Excuse me, but contrary to what Mayor Hutchison mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, there was, in my recollection, and my mind isn't as young as it was, there was no formal or even informal reach out or request from the members of council to perhaps submit options or candidates to this position. When we had our caucus meeting last week, this was presented to us and the names were put on the table, and that was the only point that there was any discussion on this matter.
And did you bring a name up at the caucus table?
No, but I did informally.
I'm sorry if I don't remember.
I'm sure you don't. And the point is, according to what you said in public record, that there was an opportunity for us to bring this
You
forward.
can always reach out to me. You can always send me an email. You can
According
call
to
me.
the words you put in the minutes, there was none of that. And I'm against,
Doug,
not the personalities of the
always-
people, I'm against the process. I don't like where TPAC
Did you
is.
speak up
I
to
do not
this
like
at
where TPAC is
caucus?
going. I don't like
I know
the
this.
composition of TPAC going forward. I'm struggling with this, and we know why.
I understand that you're struggling with
think you do.
this. Oh, I do.
Oh, I don't think you do.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Item 3.8, filming permit authorization for 14 Hours Production, Inc. This is for the authorization or a request that was placed for filming to take place August 5th at the Finnegan's Market located at 775 Main and at a private residence located at 647 Main. Essentially, this filming company is asking as well to extend the typical hours to 3 a.m. on, is it Saturday, the one that is extended? Yeah. And they have done their due diligence and met and reached out to the residents in the area and had disclaimers signed. Unfortunately, there is some back and forth. We're expecting that at least one of the people who has signed one of the disclaimers is not happy with the extension of the hour, but unfortunately, as the disclaimer exists, I hope that in the future that process will be clear. But it is on the disclaimer, it is indicated that the time extension was requested and is there. So are there any further comments on this? Are we ready to pass to the vote? En français. Merci.
Qu'une demande de permis de tournage a été acheminée à la Ville par les productions 14 heures Inc. pour le tournage d'une télésérie, que le tournage se fera le 5 août prochain au marché Finnegan et à une résidence privée, considérant que la production nécessite des heures différentes que celles prévues au règlement de tournage de film. La résolution vise à autoriser le tournage selon l'horaire proposé par les productions 14 heures.
Merci beaucoup. So I will need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. Peter made Mark Gray moving and Reed Thompson seconding. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. This is carried unanimously. Item 3.9, inventory of remarkable trees. So this is the mandate to Suzanne Hardy. So where council prioritizes the orientations in terms of environmental protection, where one of the amendments in the planning program was for strategy number 14, which is with regards to remarkable trees and their inclusion in our vision and our protection process. Also, council is taking the steps to identify and select a professional to assist the town in establishing this inventory of remarkable trees on its territory. And council also wishes to develop and implement a new tree policy specific to Hudson. So this resolution is to ratify the mandate granted to Mrs. Suzanne Hardy on July 14th for the maximum amount of $7,200 without taxes, and that this expense be funded from the unallocated surplus for the same amount. En français.
Que le conseil a effectué des démarches afin d'identifier et sélectionner un professionnel pour assister la Ville dans l'établissement d'un inventaire des arbres remarquables sur son territoire. Que le conseil désire élaborer et mettre en place une nouvelle politique de l'arbre spécifique à Hudson. La résolution vise à entériner le mandat octroyé à Suzanne Hardy au montant de 7 200 $ sans taxe et que cette dépense soit financée à même l'excédent non affecté pour le même montant.
Merci. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Mark Gray moves, seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.10 is simply the tabling of the monthly reports for permits issued in June. En français.
Les membres du conseil prennent acte du dépôt du rapport mensuel des permis émis du service de l'urbanisme.
Merci. So now moving on to section 4 on administration and finance, item 4.1, approval of disbursements for July of 2022. Whereas council has examined the disbursements made and to be made for accounts payable as of July 21st of 2022. This resolution is to approve the following disbursements as of that date. For checks, $634,828.23. Canceled checks, $72.17. Direct debit, $55,766.48. Subtotal, $690,522.54. For payroll number 14, $143,219.62. For payroll number 15, $140,219.88. For a total of accounts paid of $973,962.04.
L'approbation des paiements au 21 juillet 2022 tel que présenté. Chèque 634 828,23 sous. Chèque annulé 72,17 sous. Débit direct 55 766,48 sous. Débit direct annulé aucun. Sous-total des paiements 690 522,54 sous. Paye numéro 14 143 219,62 sous. Paye numéro 15 144 219,88 sous. Total des comptes payés 973 962 et 4 sous.
Merci beaucoup. I will need a mover and a seconder for this, moved by Benoit Blais, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Item 4.2, awarding of contract for AO 2022-12-TP for information and communication technologies. Considering the needs in terms of maintenance services for the town's computer and telephone systems, whereas a public call for tenders was issued on June 23rd of 2022, whereas the tender documents provided for a bid weighting and evaluation system in which each bidder could get a total score of 100 points, the lowest conforming bidder being the one with the highest final score based on a formula prescribed by the law. The call for tenders included two options as to the duration of the contract and that the town wishes to opt for a 2-year contract. In considering the following companies submitted an offer, and after an evaluation of the offers, they obtained the following interim scoring stage, where for company number 1, ETID Solutions Inc. was 79% and Reference System Inc. was 69%, whereas Reference System has obtained an interim score of less than 70%, which is insufficient to allow it to have its price offer opened. The offer submitted by ETID Solutions Inc. is therefore the only compliant offer. And this resolution is to award to ETID Solution Inc., the lowest conforming bidder, the 2-year contract for information communications technology for an amount of $104,098 before taxes. So this is actually the same firm that we have now that has gone through its second new name. It went from, I forget the first one now, but now it's Helpox. Anyway, so it's the same people that we have now. We're very pleased with them and they offer on-site assistance. And in comparing the price for 1 year versus 2 years, it's comparable. C'est du simple au double. There is no gain or loss. So it's to our advantage to pursue with the second, with the 2-year. So, en français.
Il s'agit d'un octroi de contrat en technologie de l'information et des communications, considérant les besoins en matière de services d'entretien des systèmes informatiques et téléphoniques de la ville, qu'un appel d'offres public a été lancé le 23 juin dernier, que les entreprises suivantes ont soumis une offre, Solution ETED Inc. et Référence Système Inc., que Référence Système Inc. a obtenu un pointage intérimaire de moins de 70%, ce qui est donc insuffisant pour lui voir son offre de prix ouverte, puis que l'offre soumise par Solution ETED est par conséquent la seule offre conforme. La résolution vise à octroyer à Solution ETED, le plus bas soumissionnaire conforme, le contrat de 2 ans pour un montant de 104 098 $ avant taxe.
Merci beaucoup. All right, so I will need a mover and a seconder for this contract. So Peter Mate moves and Reed Thompson seconds. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see no objections. The motion is carried unanimously. Item 4.3, awarding of contract for the IP telephony. Whereas the project listed in the 3-year capital program is for ITP 2022, whereas the firm, so here's the name, Neotech and Help OX, has submitted an offer of service number 012743 in order to replace the town's phone system in favor of an internet-based system. Whereas the installation capital cost amount is $19,599.84 before tax. And whereas the new system will generate savings estimated at $4,964 annually, this resolution is to award the sum of $19,599.84 before taxes to the firm Groupe Neotech Help Ox, which will soon be called Groupe Système ETID. And this project will be financed through the working capital to be reimbursed over 4 years. En français.
Il s'agit d'un octroi de contrat pour la téléphonie IP, considérant l'offre de service de la firme Helpox, Groupe Neotech, de remplacer les appareils téléphoniques standards de la ville avec un système de téléphonie via Internet, considérant les frais d'implantation et de capital sont de 19 599,84 sous avant taxe et que le nouveau système va générer des économies estimées à 4 964 annuellement, que la résolution vise à octroyer à la firme LPOX pour un montant de 19 599,84 sous avant taxe au terme de la soumission et de financer ce projet à même le fonds de roulement remboursable sur 4 ans.
Merci beaucoup. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Reed Thompson moves, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Moving on to part 5, the town clerk. Item 5.1, aqueduct servitude on lots 6271983, 5063657, and 1831951. Is 951 still exists? It does. Okay. Brisbane Street. 951. Okay, very good. So I understand because this is in relations to a pre-existing resolution, so it has the same title. All right. So whereas the resolution from 2019 of September authorized the preparation and instrumentation of a deed of servitude to allow access, maintenance, and repair of a municipal water line that passes through lots aforementioned. Whereas the water line was in all likelihood put in place in 1975, therefore, after the entry into force of the Act respecting the protection of Quebec agricultural land and agricultural activities. Whereas the presence of the water line on 2 lots located in an agricultural land must be authorized by the CPTAQ, so the Commission de Protection du Territoire Agricole. And whereas according to the resolution of 2019, the name of the notary that had been assigned was Maître Catherine Ricard. She had been mandated to execute the deed of servitude. And whereas this notary is not available, but another notary from the same firm could carry out the mandate. And also, as some lots have been subject to a cadastral amendment since the adoption of this resolution of 2019, the resolution is that a notary from the firm Bourassa Boyer Jury Fisc Inc. be mandated for the preparation and instrumentation of a deed of servitude for lots 6271983, formerly 1831913, and 5063657 and 1831951 of the Cadastre Québec. So this resolution is also to authorize Bourassa Boyer Jury Fisc Inc. to submit an application for authorization on behalf of the town to the Commission de Protection du Territoire Agricole regarding the use of 2 of the lots for purposes other than agriculture, namely for public utility use, and to authorize the town clerk to sign the deed and any other document necessary to give full effect to the resolution, to approve the payment of professional fees up to a maximum of $5,000 before taxes and disbursements, and that this expense be allocated in accordance with the budget. En français.
Il s'agit d'une servitude d'aqueduc pour des lots sur la rue Brisbane. C'est le mandat au notaire. Considérant la résolution de 2019 autorisant un acte de servitude pour permettre l'accès, l'entretien ou la réparation d'une conduite d'aqueduc municipale qui passe par ces lots, que la conduite précitée a selon toute vraisemblance été mise en place en 1979 après l'entrée en vigueur de la loi de la protection du territoire et des activités agricoles du Québec, que la présence de la dite conduite sur 2 lots situés en zone agricole doit faire l'objet d'une autorisation de la Commission de protection du territoire agricole, que la résolution de 2019 mandate spécifiquement Maître Catherine Ricard, notaire, pour instrumenter l'acte de servitude, que Maître Ricard n'est pas disponible. La résolution vise à mandater un notaire de la firme Bourassa Boyer Jury Fisc Inc. pour la préparation de l'acte et l'instrumentation d'un acte de servitude et de soumettre une demande d'autorisation au nom de la Ville auprès de la Commission de protection du territoire agricole relativement à l'utilisation des lots situés en zone agricole, d'autoriser la greffière à signer l'acte notarié et tout autre document nécessaire et approuver le paiement des honoraires professionnels jusqu'à concurrence de 5 000 $ avant taxes et déboursés.
Merci. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Mark Gray moves, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Here's a second of at item 5.2, another servitude. So this is for a common ditch on lots, 4 lots, numbered lots along Amity Street. Whereas a drainage ditch along these lots serves to drain Main Road and that of the town, and that the town wishes to clarify the terms with the lot owners. Whereas a servitude of maintenance of the said ditch in favor of the said lots is required, as well as a servitude of access in favor of the town, as indicated in the technical description by the land surveyor Claude Bourbonnais in his minutes 20095. And whereas notary Maître Conrad Bedard has produced an offer of service numbered given to establish the said servitudes, this resolution is to mandate the notary Maître Conrad Bedard to establish the deeds of servitude and to award the maximum sum of $4,000 before taxes and disbursements for publication of said deeds to a maximum amount of $524 non-taxable for the publication. So to authorize also the town clerk to sign the deeds and any other document necessary to give full effect to this resolution at the expense be allocated in accordance with the budget. En français.
Il s'agit ici d'une servitude de fossé mitoyen visant des lots sur la rue Amity. Qu'un fossé mitoyen derrière la rue Amity sert à drainer la rue même et que la Ville désire régulariser les droits des parties propriétaires, qu'une servitude d'entretien est requise et est requise également une servitude permettant l'accès par la Ville sur les 10 lots. Considérant l'offre de service du notaire Maître Conrad Bédard afin d'instrumenter les dites servitudes, la résolution vise à mandater le notaire Maître Bédard afin d'instrumenter les actes de servitude et d'autoriser la somme maximale de 4 000 $ avant taxe et les déboursés des frais de publication des 10 actes pour un montant maximal de 524 $ non taxables et d'autoriser la greffière à signer les actes notariés et tout autre document nécessaire.
Merci. I will need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. Mark Gray moves, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. It is carried unanimously. Item 5.3, right-of-way and drainage servitudes. This is for water runoff servitude on lot 1834016 for the Willowbrook project. Considering the resolution 2022-03-75, so this is from March, authorizing the signature of a release and transaction agreement with the numbered company, which was signed on March 8th of 2022 and constitutes an appendix to the municipal work agreement for the Willowbrook housing development. Whereas section 11, paragraph A of the agreement provides for the transfer by the promoter in favor of the town of a real and perpetual servitude of passage and drainage on lot 1834016 for the nominal sum of $1. Whereas section 11, paragraph B of the agreement provides for the transfer by the promoter in favor of the town of a servitude of water runoff on the same lot for a nominal sum of $1. This resolution is to authorize the town clerk to sign for and on behalf of the town any deed of servitude provided for under the release and transaction agreement signed on March 8th, including those referred to in this resolution, and any other document deemed useful and necessary to give full effect of this to this agreement.
Il s'agit ici d'une servitude de passage et de drainage et une servitude d'écoulement des eaux visant un lot dans le projet Willowbrook. Considérant l'entente relative en 2022 à des travaux municipaux concernant la phase 1 du développement domiciliaire Willowbrook, que l'article 11, paragraphe A de l'entente précitée prévoit la cession par le promoteur en faveur de la Ville d'une servitude de passage et de drainage pour la somme de $1, que l'article 11, paragraphe B de l'entente précitée prévoit la cession par le promoteur en faveur de la Ville d'une servitude d'écoulement des eaux pour la somme de $1. La résolution vise à autoriser la greffière à signer tout document jugé utile et nécessaire afin de donner plein effet à la dite entente.
Merci
Mrs.
beaucoup.
Mayor, as this is with the developer, I'll recuse myself from this one as well.
Thank
Apologies for
you.
not bringing it up earlier.
Is that all right? So please note that Darren Legault recuses himself from voting on this item. So I will need a mover and a seconder. So Reed Thompson, seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. This is carried unanimously. Please note that Darren Legault returns to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5.4, this is simply tabling minutes of correction to two bylaws, bylaw 732-2022 and 735-2020, where it was noted that between the French and the English language, in French it is used immovable, whereas in English that had been reduced to a term that didn't hold the same weight. So this has been corrected and to give equal weight, but please note that in Hudson, the French version predominates anyhow. So, this is it en
Ici,
français.
il s'agit d'un dépôt. La greffière adjointe procède au dépôt du procès verbal de correction visant les règlements 732-2020 et 735-2020 relativement à une erreur cléricale dans la traduction.
Merci beaucoup. So moving on to part 6 on human resources, item 6.1, terms and conditions of employment adjustment for employee 929. Whereas this employee has been employed by the town of Hudson since July 22nd of 2019, whereas an adjustment in monetary conditions for this employee is necessary, the town has no doubt as to the quality of the employee's work performance. This resolution is to authorize the adjustment in monetary conditions of this employee retroactive to July 14th of 2022, to approve as drafted the new employment contract for this employee, and to authorize the Director General to sign this revised employment contract and in the name of the town, and this expense be allocated in accordance to the budget. En français.
Il s'agit ici d'un ajustement des conditions d'emploi pour l'employé 929, que l'employé 929 est à l'emploi de la ville d'Hudson depuis 2019, qu'un ajustement des conditions pécuniaires est nécessaire, que la ville n'entretient aucun doute quant à la qualité de la prestation de travail de l'employé. La résolution vise à autoriser l'ajustement rétroactif au 14 juillet 2022, d'approuver le nouveau contrat de travail et d'autoriser le directeur général à signer le dit contrat de travail.
Merci beaucoup. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Darren Legault moves and Mark Gray seconds. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Moving on to part 7 for recreation, culture, and tourism. This is item 7.1, Benson Park activity for Porch Fest 2022. Whereas Porch Fest will take place on Saturday, September 10th of 2022, whereas Porch Fest is a community event that showcases Hudson and brings in many local and out-of-town music fans and is now in its 5th edition. Whereas the organizers have requested permission to use a section of Benson Park for the installation of the pop stage. This resolution is to approve the use of a portion of Benson Park for Porch Fest pop stage concerts on September 10th. 2022 from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. En français.
Il s'agit ici de l'activité dans le parc Benson, Porch Fest 2022. Le Porch Fest aura lieu le samedi 10 septembre prochain. Le Porch Fest est un événement communautaire qui met en valeur Hudson, qu'il fait venir de nombreux amateurs de musique locaux et de l'extérieur de la région et qu'il en est maintenant à sa 5e édition. Que les organisateurs ont demandé la permission d'utiliser une section du parc Benson pour l'installation de la scène Pop Stage. La résolution vise à approuver l'utilisation du parc Benson pour les concerts de la scène Pop Stage du Porch Fest le 10 septembre de 11h à 23h.
Merci. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Reed Thompson moves, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Moving on to section 8, Public Works. So item 8.1, awarding of contract AO 2022-3-TP, plans and specifications to connect to water systems. Whereas the Hudson Valley Water System supplies all the water to Hudson Valley's and Alston Vale sector, whereas the potable water well named Alston Vale Wells has been influenced by surface water, also known as ESSIDES. Whereas an evaluation of the Hudson Valley's water system was completed at the end of 2021. Whereas this evaluation shows that the Hudson Valley system could be connected to the urban water system. Whereas the awarding of said contract must be conducted following a call to tender process, and the public tender AO-2022-3-TP was issued and published on SOAU for the creation of plans and specifications for the connection of 2 water systems, that of the urban water system and Hudson Valley's water system. Whereas the tender documents provided for a bid weighting and evaluation system in which each bidder could get a total score of 100%, the lowest conforming bidder being the one with the highest final score based on a formula prescribed by law. Whereas the offer submitted by EXP Services, Inc. was the only one received. This resolution is to award to EXP Services, the lowest conforming bidder, the contract for professional services for the preparation of plans and specifications with site supervision for the connection of the 2 water systems. And that this contract be for the amount of $79,500 before taxes. And that the appel d'offres, so the tender documents, the bid and the present resolution form an integral part of this agreement. And that this expenditure be authorized and financed by the budget of the project of connection of the 2 water systems listed in the TEC program. En français.
Il s'agit d'un octroi de contrat pour les plans et devis raccordement de 2 réseaux d'aqueducs. Une évaluation du réseau d'aqueducs de Hudson Valley a été complétée à la fin de 2021. Que cette évaluation démontre que le réseau Hudson Valley pourrait être accordé au réseau d'aqueducs urbain, considérant que l'octroi de ce contrat doit se faire au terme d'un processus d'appel d'offres. Considérant que l'offre soumise par les services EXP est la seule offre reçue, la résolution vise à attribuer à les services EXP le contrat de service professionnel pour la préparation des plans et devis avec surveillance de chantier pour le raccordement de 2 réseaux d'aqueducs, celui du réseau d'aqueducs urbain et celui de la Hudson Valley pour un montant de 79 500 $ avant taxe et que cette dépense soit autorisée et financée par le budget du projet de raccordement des 2 réseaux d'aqueducs inscrits au programme TEC.
Merci beaucoup. You had a question?
Oui, j'aimerais avoir juste une clarification, s'il vous plaît, parce que en français, en anglais, ça veut dire que it says the lowest conforming bidder. And I'd like to know how many other bidders there were. Mais j'ai entendu que les greffiers ont dit que le seul. Mais c'est écrit que le plus bas sur le décidaire. So,
But it's
c'est
both.
la même chose qu'en anglais.
Yeah. But it's both.
Une seule offre a été reçue.
No, mais.
No.
Oh, okay, so the low, okay, but it is.
So in the line above, it says it was the only one received, and in the line below, it also says that therefore it is the lowest bidder.
I apologize,
Thank you.
but I,
Can we proceed?
oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I will comment beyond, if I may.
May I have a mover and a seconder for this resolution? So Benoit Blais moves, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see a hand raised. This is carried by majority. Would you like to comment?
I absolutely. I think everyone in the room, can everyone hear me? You can't hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, wonderful. I can hear us all. I don't like something written where it's the lowest conforming, because if it's the only, I don't think that qualifies.
Does it make a difference? in this
Absolutely
case?
makes a difference
How
because
so?
there's no way we should be voting on a single submission.
But it was
It's
submitted.
I do not believe.
Excuse me, Doug, stop cutting me
Excuse me.
off. Thank you.
I wasn't finished
You
myself.
just cut me off.
I wasn't
again.
finished
You
myself.
just cut me off again.
Okay.
Thank you. I think we will pass to the next item. Thank you.
Was not.
Excuse
finished.
me,
I was not.
I am
finished.
leading this meeting. I would like to be
I
able to
was not
proceed.
finished with my comment, Madame Mayor.
You made your comment.
No,
We
I
are-
was not finished.
Excuse me,
Excuse-
order.
Excuse me.
No,
I
I'm.
am not finished with clarifying my comment, please,
Excuse
so that
me.
it's recorded accordingly.
Doug Smith. Who is leading this meeting?
I was not. finished.
Who is leading this meeting?
You are the mayor,
Thank
but I
you.
was not
So
finished with my
please,
comment.
enough.
Excuse me, I would like it.
Doug
recorded.
Smith, would you like to leave the table? You are not following the rules. Doug Smith, you do this again, I will ask you to leave. Thank you. Moving on, item 8.2. Mandate for technical support for the work carried out by the ad hoc committee concerning Pine Lake. Whereas the town wishes to provide technical support to the ad hoc committee that was formed regarding the Pine Lake Dam. Considering the services offer for technical support received from EXP Services, Inc., dated June 30th, 2022. This resolution is to retain the services of Monsieur Pierre Labbé of EXP Services, Inc. at the hourly rate of $175 under service offer OS VAU 448249. And to authorize a maximum expense of $5,000 before taxes, and that this expense be financed in accordance with the budget. En français.
Mandat de support technique dans le cadre des travaux du comité ad hoc sur le lac Pine. La Ville souhaite apporter un support technique au comité ad hoc qui a été formé au sujet du barrage du lac Pine. Considérant l'offre de services reçue par les services EXP datée du 30 juin, la résolution vise à retenir les services de M. Pierre Labbé de la firme Les Services EXP au taux horaire de 175 $, d'autoriser une dépense maximale de 5 000 $ avant taxe.
Merci beaucoup, Rani. I will need a mover and a seconder. Mark Gray moves, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 8.3, amendment to snow removal and winter maintenance of public roads contract AO 2019-07 DIPT. Considering resolution of 2019, June, granting the snow removal and winter maintenance contract for public roads to Entreprise S. Besner, and resolution 2022-02, so in February, approving the renewal of the contract for 2 additional years, whereas it is stipulated in the contract that the snow quantities are calculated based on readings taken at a Ministère de l'Environnement et de la Lutte contre les changements climatiques weather station, whereas the current weather station used is located in Nissèdre and the data recorded is not accurate enough, whereas the weather station located in Rigaud is more representative of the actual weather conditions in Hudson, whereas council's authorization is required to make an amendment to the contract. This resolution is to authorize the town clerk to sign the amendment contract number 1 relating to the contract of snow removal and winter maintenance of public roads aimed at modifying the reference weather station for snow precipitation provided for in clause 3 of the devis technique section of the original contract, and that this contract be applicable for the next and last 2 years of the aforementioned contract. En français.
Amendement au contrat de déneigement et d'entretien hivernal des voies publiques, considérant la résolution de 2019, octroyant le contrat de déneigement et d'entretien à Entreprise S. Besner, la résolution de 2022 approuvant le renouvellement du dit contrat pour 2 ans supplémentaires, considérant qu'au terme du contrat, les quantités de neige sont calculées selon des relevés effectués à une station météorologique du ministère de l'Environnement et de la lutte contre les changements climatiques, que la station utilisée est située à Nissèdre et que les données qu'elle enregistre ne sont pas suffisamment précises, que la station météorologique située à Rigaud est plus représentative des précipitations réelles à Hudson. Attendu que l'autorisation du conseil est requise pour apporter une modification, la résolution vise à autoriser la greffière à signer le contrat visant à modifier la station météorologique de référence et que cet amendement soit mis applicable aux 2 prochaines et dernières années du contrat précité.
Merci beaucoup. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Darren Legault moves, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Item 8.4, awarding of contract AO 2022-14-TP drainage upgrade of a section of Mayfair Street in Hudson. Whereas a section of Mayfair Street between Cambridge Street and 64 Mayfair was constructed without a proper drainage system. Whereas the construction of new houses on this section of Mayfair is forcing the surface water to collect on public road, whereas the water accumulation on public roads creates public safety issue. Whereas the awarding of the said contract must be conducted following a call for tender process, whereas the bids of the public call for tender were opened publicly on July 21st, 2022 at 9:50. Whereas the tender documents provided for a bid weighting and evaluation system in which each bidder could get a total score of 100%, the lowest conforming bidder being the one with the highest final score based on a formula prescribed by law. Considering the following companies submitted an offer and after an evaluation of the offer, the following points were awarded. So in the case of Shelex Group Conseil Inc., the final score was 8.02. They ranked first. Second was IGF Axiom with a final score of 6.56 and GHD with a final score of 2.3 came in third rank. Whereas the offer submitted by Shelex Consulting Group Inc. received the highest point score. And whereas the finance department has validated the allocation of this expenditure, this resolution is to award to Shelex Consulting Group, the lowest conforming bidder, the contract for professional services for the drainage upgrade of a section of Mayfair Street in Hudson for an amount of $142,000 before taxes. The tender documents, the bid and the present resolution forming an integral part of this agreement and that this expenditure be allocated in accordance with the budget. En français.
Octroi de contrat pour services professionnels mise à niveau du drainage d'une portion de la rue Mayfair. Qu'une section de la rue Mayfair a été construite sans système de drainage adéquat, que la construction de nouvelles maisons force l'eau de surface à s'accumuler sur la voie publique, ce qui crée un danger de sécurité publique, que l'appel d'offres a été ouvert le 21 juillet dernier, que l'appel d'offres prévoyait un système de pondération, que 3 entreprises ont soumissionné, Shelex, IGF Axiom et GHD, que l'offre soumise par Shelex a reçu le pointage le plus élevé, que la résolution vise à octroyer le contrat de service professionnel pour la mise à niveau du drainage d'une section de la rue Mayfair pour un montant de $142 000 avant taxe.
Merci. Philippe, you want to add something?
Je demanderais un petit amendement, I'd ask for a small amendment. Plutôt que dire que la dépense soit financée conformément au budget, que ça soit financé conformément au programme TECQ, TEC. So in English, rather than this expenditure be allocated according with the budget, it would actually be allocated to the finance program TECQ.
Thank you. Thought it was odd that it was per budget. But okay, very good. I will need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. So Darren Legault moves, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. See no hands raised. It is carried unanimously. Moving on to part 10 for bylaws, item 10.1. This is loan bylaw 755-2022, authorizing a loan of $1,893,400 for work improvement of Main Road from Quarry Point to Bellevue. This is for the adoption of this bylaw, whereas a notice of motion of this bylaw was given at the regular meeting of the municipal council held on July 4th, so last month. Council has reviewed the loan bylaw for this work, and whereas there have been no changes to the proposed bylaw tabled in July, that the purpose of this bylaw is to authorize a loan in the amount aforementioned and to proceed with the road repairs. This loan is over a 15-year period, and its reimbursement shall be borne by movable owners throughout the whole town's territory. This resolution is to adopt the loan bylaw authorizing this loan for the work improvements on Main Road from Quarry Point to Bellevue. En conseil.
Ici, il s'agit de l'adoption du règlement d'emprunt 755-2022 de 1 893 400 $ autorisant les travaux de réfection de la rue Main de Quarry Point à Bellevue. Qu'un avis de motion a été donné à la séance du 4 juillet, que le conseil municipal a pris connaissance du règlement d'emprunt, que le règlement ne comporte aucune modification au projet déposé le 4 juillet dernier, que le règlement a pour objet la réalisation de travaux de voirie, que l'emprunt est remboursable sur 15 ans et son remboursement est supporté par les propriétaires d'immeubles de l'ensemble du territoire de la ville. La résolution vise à adopter le règlement d'emprunt 755-2022 de 1 893 400 $ autorisant des travaux de réfection de la rue Main de Quarry Point à Bellevue.
Merci beaucoup. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Mark Gray moves, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this bylaw? Please raise your hand. To this resolution, please raise your hand. There are none. This resolution is carried unanimously. Moving on to the second and last question period. Are there any questions online? No.
Jim Duff, 127 Charleswood. I'm sorry, I apologize. I might bust the quota because I have one extra question and I just wanted to start off with.
Considering there are very few people in the room, that's all right. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So why did we move the portable toilets at Jack Layton Park and when are we going to put them back to where they were?
I didn't realize we had moved them.
They were moved, I believe, for the Canada Day festivities. But the problem is when you're coming off the water in a kayak,
It's
and you
far.
have to make your way down to the other end of the parking lot. It's quite, it's easier just to hit the bushes, and that's not good.
No, I agree.
So if we can move them back to where they were, that would be really
Ideally,
appreciated.
eventually we'd have a permanent structure for them and not have just porta potties all summer.
From your mouth to God's ear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The next question, it concerns 8.1. We talked about this in the last administration. And we thought it would be a good idea. The Director General suggested that there was nothing that prevented us from connecting the two well systems, the Hudson Valley's Alstonville system with the rest of the system in the town. The water, I think all agree that the water from the town comes from 483 and the new well, and a little bit from Bradbury. And we can easily dispense with Hudson Valley's and Alstonville. I think we're generally in agreement. Now, the question is, my read of the law that requires testing, periodic testing, monthly testing, is that if you're over 5,000 residents on one system or any one system, you have to test for pesticides and organic chemicals. And so far we're not, because we've always
just
said that
under that,
we came in under the 5,000 because we have the pressure system, the gravity fed system, and the Hudson Valley system and the Reckitt system. Reckitt system is
And people who are on wells. Let's not forget.
right. If we, well, we'd love to be able to count those, but we can't. So my question is, can we test for those organic contaminants and the pesticide contaminants that had been suggested in the vulnerability report that's posted on the town's own website? It is currently on the website.
That's an excellent point. I hadn't
Yeah,
come
I mean, it
across
just
that.
makes sense to me
Thank you
that
for the
if
recommendation.
we're now over the bump and we're past the point of being.
I don't
able-
think we're over the bump yet, but we're
Yeah.
coming close, but it's nonetheless, I think it's a good practice. So definitely we should look into that.
So
thank you
if
for
we
the
can look
suggestion.
at that
We'll look
as
at
a
that.
priority.
Yeah,
I think it
I
is
think that's a good
important.
point.
And
As
the
long as I
only,
get a nod from Philip, is that a good point? Yes.
I think he's already,
I just like the fact that we would do this as a practice for the future. I like the concept.
I like to think that you were the initiator of this, so you still bear some responsibility for making it happen. And the last question is concerning, I just read that Vaudreuil Dorion is going to RFID chips in their garbage and brown bins and going to bigger brown bins. As one of the very few people in town that was able to get a very big brown bin, I think it would be wise to just give everybody in town the option and really get serious about brown bins, because I think
No, I
usage
agree.
is still around 25-30%.
It is though. It is absolutely something that I'd like the Environment Committee to look at how to bolster that
So-
number. But as well, knowing that the trucks that are doing the pickups now can actually service both. So it's not that big of an issue. We just essentially have to offer it, I think, to residents and inform them to that. But we'd like to move to the program that you had started or looked into, which was the pay-per-use program. So that, I think that's where Vaudreuil is headed
Yeah,
with regards to their brown bins as well.
good.
And that's something we'd like to piggyback on their knowledge and their ability to do that as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please, Craig, 127 Charleswood. I couldn't find a vulnerability report. I still can't find it. I
The who?
Google it, the vulnerability report. When you Google it,
Yeah,
when you try to find it in search,
I haven't.
you can't
even-
find it.
No, I haven't looked it up for it,
Yeah,
but I will.
I can't find it. So, and I remember
I'll add it
Melissa
to my
saying it
list.
wasn't there. So anyway, so that's that. Anyway,
Poor Philip.
that's not the reason why I'm here. I'm here about secondary buildings. You know this. You all know this. I brought it up. There are in this municipality a few properties, several properties that have secondary buildings, second building on their lot. That includes St. Thomas Church and the Presbytery, St. James Church, and the Manse, Legs, and the Alibi Barn, the Yacht Club and the Canteen, the Fire Hall and Public Works share one cadastral. There's several buildings on McNaughton. Yeah, Jim checked all the cadastrals. The community center that we're in right now is confusing because it
Over
has
3 lots.
two
Three.
addresses on a joint building.
Yeah.
So it's on Main and on Beach. Grosso modo, if there's a fire, if those buildings are destroyed to 50% or more, the interpretation, the present interpretation, because it was not that interpretation before, but the present interpretation is that you are not allowed to rebuild that building, even though they were built legally at the time to have them. They were never grandfathered in. Furthermore, I'm sure many of these people don't know their insurance won't cover, because if you cannot rebuild a building, the insurer will only give you the value, the depreciated value of the building materials on that property, on that building. So a building could be worth $500, $1,000. Like, I don't know what
Have you
St. Thomas,
looked into subdividing that property?
as you know, the subdivision is 100 feet. So for a lot of these, it would not be possible to do this. It would certainly not be possible for Legs or the Alibi. I don't see that the yacht club would want to subdivide to have the canteen there. You could probably subdivide. I don't know how you would do it. The
Most of
fire
those
hall
are
for Public
secondary
Works.
buildings though, right? In your case, it's different because they're both considered primary buildings, correct?
Yeah, but even as anything that would have water attached to it would be considered to be a secondary building. If you could definitely live in there. So for instance, the Alibi Barn has sinks, kitchen, facility, bathroom, all of that. So you could technically live in it. So it's not a barn. No, it's got water. That's what it
It's
says
got
in your
water, but it's
bylaw.
hard to say you could live in it, but I hear you. have
But you hear
water.
me on this one. I mean, that's the way that it works. But I mean, the point is that all of these buildings are vulnerable to this happening, and these owners don't know about this. And it's a small, I mean, it's interpretation. And again, this is a recent interpretation that says you cannot replace these buildings. In the past, I was always told you can replace these buildings. I actually had plans made for one of these to enlarge it years ago. I was told everything was fine. I just never went ahead with the work. But I mean, that's something that we need to address, because should there be a fire, I don't think St. Thomas Church, the Catholic Church, would be too happy to know that they've lost the presbytery, or that St. James Church has lost the manse. There wouldn't be allowed, according to the interpretation of the bylaws, to rebuild these.
Thank you. We have
So-
received your request, and certainly is on the list, the ongoing list, but it would be, as you know, when we're redoing the bylaws that pertain to the central core heritage and.
But I believe we can walk and chew gum at the same time. This is just
I
changing.
have a lot of
line in
priorities.
this.
There's a lot of things that we're trying to get done as well. And as you
Again-
know, we have limited capacity in our urban planning department at this time.
But we amend bylaws all the time, as we did tonight. I
In
amend some
urban planning, as
bylaws.
you know, it's different. These bylaws that you see here are more for loan bylaws. They're for public works. In terms of town planning, it's a different mindset.
So what are you going to do? Should there be a fire at the manse at St. James Church tonight, and they lose over 50% of that building, and they're not allowed to rebuild, or the presbytery? All of those buildings were built
As with
legally.
everything, I can't control freaks of nature or, situations that happen. And we can't be expected to change everything instantly,
Okay.
and everything is in due process.
But let it be noted now that this has been advised to everybody here, that this is a situation, should there be a lawsuit, you've all been made aware of this. I'd like to have also a point of clarification, and I'm not going to take sides amongst councillors and the mayor as far as how to conduct a council meeting,
Mhm.
but I will say that the Cities and Towns Act makes it very clear that nobody has the power to kick out any member of council from the room, unless there is a threat, and it is a physical threat to somebody, one of the members. No mayor, nobody's allowed to kick out somebody.
I believe we have rules of internal governance, which you bring us to,
Overridden.
the 348. So maybe we should look at revising that. But
The
presently,
Cities
that
and
is
Towns
allowed.
Act, the province makes it very clear that no councillor can be removed from a chamber of council during the process of
So
a
next
council
time I will
meeting.
adjourn the meeting. And that will be that.
And as Philip told Jim before, when the previous mayor would try to shut him down, just keep talking.
Thank you, Louise. Are there any other questions? Any questions online, Philip? All right, there were some questions that were received in preparation of this meeting. This is from Allison Hastings, to whom it may concern. I am a Hudson resident on Wharf Road and would like to call to your attention the extreme odors. So this is the same question as we had received earlier from Mr. Pickering. Philip Toon gave us the answer that this is being looked into presently and will be remediated as soon as possible. Second question is from Frank Bastrokey, asking what is the process for getting trees and brush trimmed that are overgrowing the road? There are numerous sections along main and side streets where the overgrowth obscures intersections and also makes contact with larger vehicles. How are the responsible parties held accountable for trimming? Some road intersections are so overgrown that vehicles must creep out into approaching traffic to see if the crossroad is clear to proceed. This is a safety issue. Also, some branches hang low enough to make contact with average vehicles like pickup trucks. So this is a topic that has come up to our table a few times and has been raised. And I believe that we will be doing another run through, certainly on the main arteries, and looking to improve the situation of low hanging branches and also dangerous curves and low visibility areas. But if there are any intersections or areas where you feel that that hasn't been done sufficiently, just let us know or fill out a service request online, and these will be addressed one by one. We generally do one sweep a year. Perhaps we should do more than one at this time. And also there was a question then from Adrian Burke with regards to the filming permit, item 3.8. He was asking, He is a neighbor of the property, and he was mentioning that the filming company plans to film at this house on Friday, August 5th from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. on Saturday morning. He felt that he had not signed the agreement giving his permission. Meanwhile, we do have a form where his signature is there. I believe that in the discussions that he'd had with the filming company, there was perhaps some misunderstanding that took place there. And certainly we will keep our eyes open at next requests for this property or this area. And hopefully the residents will take it upon themselves to actually read the fine print in these agreements as well. It makes it hard for us once the agreement is signed for us to go back and to retract on the existing. So this is it. Moving on then to part 12. Est-ce qu'il y a une partie en français? No, this is for the adjournment of the meeting.
C'est la levée de la séance. Que
D'accord.
la séance soit levée.
So I need a mover and a seconder. Darren Legault moves, and it is seconded by Peter Mate, that the meeting be adjourned at 9:05 p.m. And I will need a vote. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Thank you.